Welcome to Your Success Podcast. I'm Angelos.
And I'm Mo.
And today we're really pleased to be interviewing Mark Homer of Progressive Property. We talked about so many things with Mark, and he gave us a great insight into his journey in property, even some controversial political views.
Yep, and we talked about how he works with his business partner, Rob Moore.
Indeed, which was quite illuminating.
Yep.
And he also mentioned about his hot tub jacuzzi, which I'm sure if ever you wanted to know about Mark Homer in a hot tub, today's your lucky day.
Yeah. So enjoy the episode and please let us know what you think. Hello, podcast listeners. First up, thank you so much for listening to and supporting the podcast. We really appreciate it. We love doing it and we love getting the amazing comments in from all of you. Just a quick reminder that the Your Success book is out now on amazon.co.uk and amazon.com. It's currently available in both paperback and Kindle, and the audiobook will be coming out in 2019. Head to tiny.cc/yourbook to check it out. That's tiny.cc/yourbook to check it out. Now, on with the podcast.
Welcome to Your Success Podcast. We give you actionable insight and stories behind real-life success wherever you go. Here are your hosts, Angelos and Mo.
Mark Homer, thank you for joining us on Your Success Podcast. You guys are in London for the 10X Property Super Conference. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so the 10X Property Super Conference is going to be over 1,000 investors all in one room. So we've got a whole sort of selection of speakers who have got different sort of expertise, disciplines. Obviously, we've got Grant Cardone coming over, who's got a portfolio of nearly $1 billion. So, good chunk of experience there. People there talking about how to split properties into rooms, serviced accommodation, how to increase your cash flow to get you out of that sort of 9-to-5 job. So, and it's not just property. There will be some other speakers there as well on marketing, social media. I know we've got quite a few flippers in the room who buy and sell properties as well. So we've got the whole spectrum there.
Amazing. So you've got your business, Progressive, or one of your businesses, you've got the property training and education business, and then sort of you're buying and developing property as well. Where do you spend most of your time at the moment?
Most of my time is buying and developing buildings. Okay. So at the moment, I'm just finishing a project off, and then I've got two. That's plenty for me. I'm doing about 100,000 square foot at the moment. But they're sort of a different type of building. Some of them have cluster flats, some of them are apartments. So the buildings I'm converting into about 150 tenants. That's how many residential tenants we'll have. And they're retail buildings that I'm doing now. So I was doing offices, I was doing pubs, I was doing private members clubs. Retail's just turned acrid, negative, and
so that's the reason there's an opportunity.
I quite like it when everyone gets a bit down on something. It's a bit like Neil Woodford's fund. I mean, I obviously it depends whether it's closed-ended or open-ended, but if the valuation of the fund has gone down because everyone's selling, it might be a good time to look at it.
Yeah.
So looking back, 10, 12 years ago, Mark, when you predominantly, I think it's fair to say, looking at single lets, HMOs, that kind of thing, and then how you scaled up to these multi-million-pound projects.
Yeah.
Was that a natural evolution for you, or was it something that you always had your eye on to scale up?
We always wanted to scale. When Rob and I started Progressive, it wasn't a training business. We were just buying little terraced houses, refurbing them, and then rolling the money over, and then we started doing it for investors. And the initial goal was to buy 1,250 houses, but to bring a lot of investors in to help us do that. Now, we didn't continue with that business all the way through to the goal. The credit crunch got in the way. It got more and more difficult. And we had a training business that sort of grew off the back of it. So I was there left still wanting to carry on, build the portfolio and carry on developing properties because that's what I like doing. So that's where the sort of commercial conversions came from, really. We just continue to sort of grow that business. And obviously then the properties go into a letting agency and we grow that as well.
And that's all in-house, isn't it?
It is, yeah. We have another business partner who runs the letting agency. He owns it with us, and we've got 850 tenants in there now. that he manages. I think there's 11 staff, something like that. Yeah,
it's not too shabby, huh?
Yeah, the management's been a good thing. Not just because obviously we make money from it, because we have external landlords as well. But you just get the control and you get proper management, which was the biggest thing that for so many years we were using external letting agents, and one in particular who actually we were just talking earlier on about how Labour pushed all the LHA rates up, and we were getting another, we were getting $625 on a 3-bed when maybe the private market was $475, $500, and that was the old Tony Blair Labour government. They just kept pushing the rents up, and it was great. That all ended when David Cameron came along and he smashed it all to pieces, and it got worse and worse and worse. But we were using a letting agent who just used to take those people off the council, not referenced, and we used to get a lot more rent, and it worked. But as the years went on, when you're getting the same or less rent as you do a private tenant, and you've had 5 years of, you know what they do.
Issues, let's say.
Issues.
Yeah.
We thought it was time to bring it in-house, clear them all out. Private tenants, all that, and my life is a lot quieter now. Yeah.
So they normally say you shouldn't talk about politics or religion on a podcast, right? We're going to scrap that because you've mentioned one of the major parties in the country anyway, which kind of brings me on nicely onto my next question. Yeah. I see you as this like property superstar, almost guru, in the most respectful sense, in the fact that I trust your opinion. You look at the economy as a whole, you listen to the powers that be, and you draw sensible conclusions. Do you still think property is still a good investment? And the reason I ask that question is it seems to be the barriers for entry are still very high and are getting harder for new investors. We've got tax regulations. We've got landlords being demonised in the press. Labour even proposing that landlords should pay council tax for the tenants. So the barriers are the hardest they've ever been. And there seems to be this general derision and demonising of landlords in the press. We are effectively the new bankers, right? What's your view on that? How do you see the future of the private rental sector?
Well, I think you've got to sort of split the two things. You started by saying property. None of this, or a lot of this, isn't really affecting commercial property. It's mainly residential because there are 11 million private tenants out there, and they vote. And the Conservatives and Labour see them as easy pickings, so they'll sort of go, oh well, we'll increase stamp duty, and we'll get all these nasty landlords, with Section 24, and there's another vote, and there's another vote, and of course, all that's happening is it's pushing through into rent increases. So in our area, there are less landlords buying. There are less private landlords than there were 5 years ago, I think, even though I haven't got the data to back that up. So the result of that is there are rental increases. So the tenants are paying the price, as I suppose was predicted. But 3-bed 5 years ago was renting, $525 in Peterborough. It's now $700, $725. It's gone up a lot. So that's sort of the reality, the other side of it. So do I think buying houses to let out is a good thing? Yeah, of course I do, because the rents are going up, there's more tenants for each house, and you can get around Section 24 if you buy in a limited company, and clearly the stamp duty, you just got to pay it. I buy a lot of commercial buildings and convert them, so I just pay the commercial rate of stamp duty. I don't pay these higher rates of residential. But yeah, if you're buying individual houses, you probably just got to suffer the stamp duty. In terms of all this other stuff which Labour say they're going to do, and there is a lot of it.
For example, they're mentioning they want to share equity with tenants, should they stay for a long time. They've mentioned rent controls. So all of these things are in the pipeline should Labour get in.
Yeah. So, in terms of sharing equity, I haven't seen anything serious or specific on that from Labour. It's just been more of a Jeremy Corbyn, let's go and see a bit like he stood up at Glastonbury in front of all the students and started telling them he was going to going to
free education.
It's just a load of nonsense, isn't it, to get votes? But how he would do it, I suspect, it could be illegal. Again, I don't know, human rights, all sorts of stuff. So I'm not too concerned about that. Rent control, he did a bit of that, and then I think Labour have more specifically said that they'll allow cities to introduce their own form of rent control, a little bit like Berlin's got. So it might be, where the rent is set initially, and then you may only be able to increase it at the end of the 3-year term. There may be a 3-year minimum tenancy. There may be some citywide, rent cap, or that would, that's his proposal. But again, this is if he gets in. I don't think the Conservatives support rent control at all. In fact, I saw the housing minister, I think he's James Brockenshire. Yeah. He said last year, rent control extremely damaging. Prior to the 1988 Housing Act, you saw the quality of rented accommodation just drop through the floor, and there was a massive lack of it. So I think the Conservatives know it won't work. I think, because of course Labour are not, if you look at the polls, top of the polls is now the Brexit Party. And actually Nigel Farage, we haven't had much detail on this from him, but if you look at the sort of thrust of his manifesto when he was at UKIP, actually he's very much on our side, more than the Conservatives. You never quite know what they're going to do. I've learned that over time. But in terms of Labour, obviously there's that stuff. Banning the Section 21, they say they're going to beef up Section 8, so you're going to be able to evict quicker, if people are misbehaving. And of course, none of us want to bloody evict tenants. All right, unless you're moving back in or selling it, and they say there's going to be an exception for that, so you're going to be able to evict tenants in that circumstance. But generally speaking, landlords only evict tenants when they're not paying rent or they're misbehaving, which should be covered in the Section 8. But of course, it takes too long, so everyone just goes, "Do you know what? We use a Section 21 because then all these sort of excuses that tenants make up won't work."
Yeah, of course, because if they pay a few pounds, then suddenly it resets the whole process and you're back to square one again. Yeah,
exactly. So they need to fix that. What other stuff? Labour, this progressive property tax.
It's annoying how they've
they've
taken your brand. Yeah. So who do you think they are?
Well, do you know what? I have a little search on Google which delivers any articles which have the word progressive in it, or my name, and that happens every day. And that word or that term, progressive property tax, I have had that into my Google inbox. I can't remember how many times in the last 5 years, and it's always internationally, a progressive property tax. So this is something they've nicked from other countries. It's clearly happening elsewhere. Are they going to do it? They've been talking about it for ages. They've been talking about doing it on the value of the land. This now was suggesting that it would be on the market value of the property.
So just for those at home who don't understand what progressive tax is, could you just explain to us?
Well, I'm not sure I know what it is, because I don't think they know what it is. Because what happens is, Corbyn or McDonald's style, they go, we're going to make it better for tenants, and we don't think the tenants should pay the council tax anymore, and we're going to have a progressive property tax, and the property owner should pay that, but there's never any detail. So they say that they're going to work it on the value of the property, or that's what the newspapers say, and the owner of the property is going to pay this yearly equivalent of council tax, and it will be more, apparently, than people are paying at the moment. And of course, it will be based on the value of the property. Now, prior to this, what I had understood was it was going to be based on the land value. And I started having a little dig around with that, and what it made me realise was, in most of the areas that we hold property, the land value might be zero or negative, because all you need to do to get round to sort of deal with this is get a Rick surveyor out who's, you know, working off the BCIS figures for rebuild costs, which are always going to be reasonably high. And of course, they're sort of open to interpretation within, I don't know, 20-25%. So the higher the rebuild cost that he puts on the house, versus the market value, well, the difference between the two is the land value. So if I look at our rebuild costs, a lot of them are more than market value. So does that mean we're paying zero? Well, it's negative.
Yeah.
So when I first saw this a few months ago, I thought, or maybe it was a bit longer than that, I thought probably won't be an issue. But I don't know. If it's based on the market value, then that could be a little bit different. Who knows?
From an investor's point of view, all of these things that come in and do actually end up getting through and penalising landlords actually create opportunity for people that are willing to sort of stay the course and educate themselves.
We had this all through the recession, 2009, 2010, or 8, 9, 10. So many people were going, property's dead, you're all going to die, it's all, what are you doing this for? I'm out buying a house and, oh my God, are you all right? That was what I got all the time. And the reality was, it was the best time because we were getting stuff at 70 grand, 60 grand in Wellingborough and Corby. We're buying at 50. They're all 110, 120 grand, those houses now. Yeah. And it'll all happen again. So, people were sort of saying that to me, and all I kept saying to them is, yes, but the rent hasn't dropped, so the yield has gone up. So actually, your risk has reduced, and it's better. So you find this all the time. There's 3 main sort of slide rules. You've got sort of capital values, times of recession, or maybe, now to some extent it's gone soft, because of Brexit. Maybe some areas have dropped. Well, central London maybe 25%, but where we are, it's probably dropped 5%, something like that. So that's not so good. Rents rising, quite strongly. So that slide rules up. Yeah. And then I've forgotten the third one. They're probably tax. Finance. That's what it was. Yeah. So finance now, you can get money. It's easy. Yeah. Thinking the credit crunch, the finance went right down. Capital values not so good, but ironically good to buy. Yields and rents right up. So you've just got a combination of those 3 things all the time working away. And now you've got a 4th one, which is tax, which was never really that, it just stayed as it was before. So I'd just say that you when things change, when tax rules change, when finance changes or whatever, you've just got to move your sail, work out what the new rules are, and then you can continue to profit from it.
And that's the whole point of being an entrepreneur, right? Being able to adapt to the conditions of the market.
You've got to adapt to it all.
What does Warren Buffett say? Be brave when others are fearful, and vice versa. And looking back at 2008, 2009, 10, 11, 12, that was a very good opportunity to become quite wealthy.
Yeah, it was great, and it'll all happen again. Yeah.
What was it? I worked out the other day when Apple brought out their first iPhone back in 2007, 8, I think it was, and you invested £40,000 in their shares, and fast forward to 2011, 12, you're worth well over $1 million now. And look at it, even now, it'd be millions and millions. So, kept in hindsight, wonderful thing, right?
Yeah, of course it is. Well, that's a good example of hindsight because, you could have bought 20 tech companies, couldn't you? And I think if you bought them in 07, it'd probably be all right, but if you bought them in 2000, 2001, you'd probably have lost a load of money. Yeah. But with property, if you buy the right stuff in the middle of a dirty recession, and we're not in a dirty recession now, but things have gone soft and there are deals out there and there's development deals. Yeah. So it's ironically better to buy when most people think that it isn't. But that is the nature of this, because if everyone's piling in, everything's too firm and it's hard to get the deals. Yeah.
Indeed.
Way of the world.
You mentioned your business partner Rob Moore earlier, and we've actually just had him on the podcast. You've obviously got very different characters. You've been working together for 12, 14 years now, is it?
I think we're end of 05. Yeah.
Okay, so 14 so years.
Yeah.
Very different characters, different skill sets. How have you learned to work together to get the best out of each other?
So because we're so different, we let each other do the stuff which each other's good at. So Rob is a brilliant marketer. He's a great salesman. He's awesome on stage. He's great at motivating people, sort of building teams, creating products. And most of that stuff I'm not really very good at. I love investing. I love sort of, analysing deals and finding ways to get sweat deals and get yields of 16, 17, 18% and legal stuff and finance stuff and tax stuff and all that. And Rob just has no interest in any of that. So I deal with that and he deals with his stuff. And we sort of learnt not to tread on each other's toes over the years. And yeah.
It's just like a jigsaw, right? Without sounding too literal.
Romantic.
But, you literally complement each other, and because you stay in your own lane, it makes things nice and easy, right?
It does. Yeah, it does now. Yeah.
Do you ever disagree?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, but it's not frequent, to be honest. But, yeah, it's usually around spending.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Rob will just, spray money all over the place and it will just wind me up, and I just think it's pointless, and I think it puts himself in it just creates risk, doesn't it? Yeah. Not investment, but Rob will just love it, let's get a Lamborghini, and then the whole campaign will start, do you know what I mean? Honestly, I'm subject to a full-on Frank Kern launch sequence, do you know what I mean? There'll be 3 months of it, and he'll batter the hell out of me.
Mark!
It's like a war of attrition.
It is attrition,
wearing you down.
Yeah.
Is there anything where he's wanted to spend money and you've been like, absolutely not, and then somehow he's done it anyway, and then it's been a huge success, and you've been like, actually, that's really annoying? Because
yeah, he's done that quite a lot. Yeah. I mean, this whole events business, when we started it, it grew. What we did, we were buying these little houses, and then we put a day's course on, basically to sell the little houses. And then lots of people just started saying, well, we don't want you to buy them. We want to buy them ourselves. So will you do a 2-day course? And Rob's like, we'll do it longer. And I don't think I'd quite appreciated at that stage how big this whole training thing could be. So he was there, let's spend more money on marketing and piling loads in. Of course, there's me there getting quite concerned. And then it got bigger and bigger. And then, of course, the biggest thing was the Super Conference, or the series of them, which had stacks of people in and a whole load of, it's quite a lot of risk. I don't know, I can't remember what we put into the first one, but let's say it was £1 million. Upfront, events, security, the location, all the marketing, the whole lot. Company bank account just starts going down, all that sort of stuff. So, I would have thought he probably wanted to do it, and I was probably not so excited. But then afterwards, he makes it all work. So then,
as someone who was in those Super Conferences, it's a bloody good show you put on. Yeah. So, thanks for that.
Hey, it's it's the team, isn't it? And a lot of it's what comes out of Rob's head, to be honest. Yeah.
Diving into Mark's head now.
Yeah.
What would you say to yourself, say 10 years ago? What advice would you give yourself 10 years ago?
I'd probably do things sort of similar, in a similar way. But 10 years ago, specifically, was 2009. I'd probably borrowed a lot more money to buy a lot more stock. But hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? I would have probably got developing earlier, because I kept on with the little single lets longer. I'd been burnt quite a lot, with various things that hadn't worked, I don't know, overseas, and new builds and all sorts of stuff, rubbish that I bought and invested in. So I got very much into the mindset of, right, this works, that's it, I'm not doing anything else, which is good, fine, but there comes a point where you've sort of got to grow into the next thing and not be totally
vertical.
Vertical. Yeah. You've got to, So, yes, that's what I did. The recession was good as well, because obviously I got to buy stuff. I think it was an office building we bought for $350, and it had sold in 2006 for 1.2. And I just thought, this
was that in Peterborough? Was it?
Peterborough. It was 11 or 12,000 square foot, and we converted it into 23 apartments. And I just thought this thing is so cheap. It was like a third of the cost of rebuilding it. I can make a load of mistakes, and it's got to be a good thing in the end, and it was. So, I'd probably got started doing that stuff earlier. Yeah, and scaling up with the teams, Yeah.
So, what would you say the 3 things that have helped you to become the most successful?
Well, I think perseverance is the absolute key to most of this stuff. The shortcuts and the tips and the tricks. Yeah, we can all sort of benefit a bit from that from each other, but perseverance and actually, elbow grease and just piling on and putting you back into something for a sustained period. That's probably one of the biggest things that has worked for me. I think having a very clear sort of passion and want to sort of deliver this vision. So, if you're doing what you love, if I get to do what I want to do, I get to invest in this stuff. I get to, like here I'm looking at what's being built. I'd love to have one of those buildings. I'd love to have, I look next door. I don't know if it's an apartment building, but one day I'd love to be doing a co-living block, I'm doing a reasonable sized one in Peterborough, but in fact, I probably want to stay where I am location-wise, but I'd like to do bigger and better blocks and all that sort of stuff. I think you've got to do what your passion is, what you love, and I think you'll just be doing it, on the weekends, in the evenings. I've got some software I'm on all the time. I'm fishing around all the land and all the buildings around Peterborough. I just do it on a weekend because I enjoy it. I'd never be doing that if it was, how to double your sales in 5 minutes, or how to market better. Or I'd have to force myself to do it.
Yeah. Before you started in the property company that you got fired from or asked to leave early on, did you work before that? What kind of roles did you have before that?
So I went to university and then I left. Well, before that I was in KFC on a Saturday. I left university and I went straight on a graduate scheme with a fresh meat group. So they were selling the biggest sort of beef group in Europe. They were selling beef to Asda and to Summerfield and Co-op and those big supermarkets. So I went around all of the different departments across the country in various different factories, all around the country really. And then, so I did sales, did transport, procurement, buying, I went to work, for some of the customers as well for a bit. So I got to see, a good sort of, but in the background I had a couple of businesses and property business, Yeah.
Here's one for you, Mark. I know we haven't discussed this before, but some people out there, quite well known, they say you shouldn't own your own home because it's not really an asset because it doesn't generate income, and you should just rent and then use potentially the equity that you would have in your home to buy other cash flowing assets.
Are they English, these people?
No, they could be from the US.
Yeah.
You might be seeing them tomorrow, actually, funny enough. What are your views on that?
I'll tell you what my views are. So I've heard people say that, and I've thought about it. I think it's important to. I think when people are abroad, obviously I look at people like Warren Buffett all the time. I watch some of Grant Cardone's sort of real estate. I don't know whether he calls them workshops. Where he's sitting at his desk and he's writing all that stuff on the wall. And I get quite a lot from those sort of concepts. But I think you have to analyse these things in a sort of national or local way. Fine. I don't have the same level of knowledge of American real estate that I do here, but what I know is in this country, over the long term, I think if you don't get 5% annual capital growth, I think you've been quite unlucky. That hasn't happened over the last 12 months, may not happen over the next 12 months, may not even be the average over the next 5 years. But I think if you take a sort of 20-year average, I think you may end up doing a little bit better than that. But I think 5% is a good place to be if you just leave that in your head. The other sort of part to this equation is there's no capital gains tax to pay on your own home, and it's almost the only asset where there is no CGT or tax to pay, which is a big benefit. And I think the third thing is sort of security of tenure. The Section 21. Would I want to be a tenant and sort of spend a load of money on the house and then be evicted at any point? Probably not. So, and that's maybe not so much for investment, but that's more sort of personal. So if you think that on average the house should go up around 5% per annum, and you've got a mortgage, and especially in current times, I've got a 5-year fix at the moment. My mortgage is 2% fixed for the next 5 years. I could be on a variable at 1.5%. I could take a 10-year fix from Barclays, and they'll do me that at the moment at about 2.3, 2.4. So if I took a 10-year fix at 2.3, 2.4%, and the value of my property is going up 5% per annum, there's a difference there of, let's say, 2.5%. Now, of course, you've got maintenance and maybe a little bit of time and whatever else, but you're ahead, aren't you?
Yeah.
So it's making money. Yeah.
The way I see it in my head is free. If it's going up 5% and my mortgage interest rate is less than 4 or less, because you've got some maintenance and other costs, insurance, whatever, it's free. Yeah. And then there's no CGT, there's no tax to pay at the back end.
Yeah, and if you've got a family and things, you want to have some stability.
So, that's not where I think from on it.
Good counsel.
I'm convinced.
Yeah. And in England, you want to live in your own home, and you want to.
It's your castle, right?
Well, this last one, we took it was an old Grade 2 listed farmhouse, and nothing had been done to it, or very little, for like 70 years or something. So we just gutted it and started again. And all those little things that annoy me, I just tweaked and fixed, and it's taken ages with workmen, but I put a hot tub outside exactly where I want it. I used to laugh at people with hot tubs, but actually I've got one now. It really relaxes me. I love it. So I put the door in to go out there, and I can sort of get back inside and go and have a shower without having to sort of shoes and all this sort of stuff. I have a little sort of a key outside in a very strategic location in a key box that no one can see. When I lose my keys. And that was sort of, designed in from the start. I've built this has been the best thing we ever did. I've built these are the little things, please me these days. A little wooden box on the side of the house. It's a delivery box. It's all nicely painted. And basically now, whenever I order anything off Amazon or anything online, there is a note in there, and it just please leave everything in this delivery box. They don't ring the bell anymore. I don't get any cards through. I have to pick anything up from anywhere. And it's just taken away all the nonsense, and I just order stuff, and it just ends up in this box, and I never have to answer the door. I've got an intercom. I was brought up in the Far East, and I just loved having air conditioning in my bedroom. So I put, integrated split, you know what I mean? And then it goes outside. It's just awesome. I had it on again the other night, and it's just silent and just brings the temperature right down. So I don't sleep that well, so I don't have to open the windows. So all that stuff, if you go back to brick, you can just engineer it in. I put Ethernet in every room, Cat 7.
Very good, very nice.
And then I got, fibre, so I just love it. And all that nonsense where the internet's not working, engineered it into it's everywhere, and it just bloody works, And put a gym outside, in an outhouse, and sort of design that in, and put Cat 7 in there, and then that goes into big screen and this fit system for exercising.
So you can watch your stocks and shares as you're working out.
Yeah, I don't really do that. I love it. And and hopefully we'll make a little bit of money after doing it as well. I use a load of trade accounts, and there's no couple of pence.
Amazing. That's a fair.
And that's the thing, you can bespoke design your home, whereas you couldn't do that with a rental.
Yeah. You get, the flow, the rooms, what happens here. Freddie's got his little nursery now, and there's just put the bed in there for them. Which is great.
Mark, I'm worried that I think I know the answer to this question now, but this podcast is all about success, and as such we ask everyone we interview, what does success mean to you?
Yeah.
So apart from having the fully designed home of your dreams, what does success mean to you?
I think success is, what is success? Okay, so I think it's a couple of things. For me, success is choice to do what I want when I want. So having this business, having portfolios, all that stuff which has created the ability for me to get up, not every morning, but a lot of mornings, and go, I want to do this, this and this today. It's usually on the business. I want to, go to that building. I want to go here. I'm not sort of forced into, I do have a diary in the office with book stuff in, but I'm not controlled by somebody else, and that's, I love that. Yeah, I'm sort of free.
Yeah. That's absolutely awesome. Just a very quick question, Mark. Hot tub jacuzzi, right? So I was looking at it for my own home, and the thing that put me off is the running costs. Yeah. Because apparently over the course of a year or two, you pay for a new jacuzzi anyway.
What's that bad, is it?
Well, down in Plymouth it is, yeah. So I just
thought about it quite a bit.
And you're a numbers man as well. So yeah.
Look it up, it didn't look that bad.
Yeah, okay. So it's not too bad where you are then.
Well,
running costs. Maybe this is a discussion after the podcast.
Well, it's just a bit of electricity heating it up, isn't it?
But it's the constant. Maybe it's because we get a lot of cold and rain down there.
Yeah, well, I don't know, we do as well. Yeah.
I think maybe this is a podcast interview in itself.
Mark's bespoke home.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Just before we close, Mark, I'm interested in. You talked about one of the things that's been key for your success is actually knowing where you're going and having a very clear sort of vision strategy. How much time do you and Rob have to actually sit down and go, where are we going? What are we doing? Why are we doing what we're doing? Are we, are we just being busy, or are we actually creating a life we want?
Not loads at the moment, although we have a board meeting. So we had one of those this morning with our managing director and Rob. And then Rob and I now, we've got these sort of lunch meetings which take place, I think they're every couple of weeks. On the way here, we grabbed a bit of time. We use a driver now, so that's pretty cool. Sit in the back, and then I did all his stocks for him, his hardware, his lands down, and just put some stuff into trackers for him. And we looked at some other stuff online on some competitors, sort of where traffic's coming from, things like that. And we had a discussion about a few things. So we try and grab a bit of time together. In those three sort of formats, really. But in the office, it doesn't happen.
Day to day.
No.
Last question, Mark, before we wrap up. Where do you see Mark Homer in 10 years' time?
I'd just love to be doing more of the same. So growing organically, buying more buildings. I'm doing more commercial now as well, commercial tenants. So we've got sort of two retail units, reasonable size, sort of 50 grand rent. And I sold a big retail unit, 30,000 square foot. I sold that last year, a supermarket. So I'm doing more of that. I don't necessarily buy stuff to put commercial tenants in. I quite like doing a bit of a residential urban retail on the ground floor, but I think it's probably a good hybrid, good hedge. You were talking earlier on about Corbyn and his rather dangerous friends, if we're honest. I think if you're doing commercial, you're mixing some in. I think it's a good sort of hedge against what he's up to, because he's probably not interested in that, because it doesn't really get him any votes. It's like serviced accommodation, doesn't seem to be affected by most of this stuff, because that's dealt with under a similar regime to a hotel. So it's caught within the furnished holiday lettings rules. So maybe won't be affected so much. And then obviously we do a lot of rooms as well, a lot of cluster flats. So I'd like to sort of diversify a little bit more. I think it's probably a good thing for the sort of intergenerational thing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, Mark. Well, thank you very much for your time today. We really appreciate your honest candour on the podcast. And good luck tomorrow with the Super Conference.
Thank you.
I know it's going to be an awesome event, judging by previous years. And brilliant. Thank you again.
Thanks, Mark.
And thanks for those of you at home listening. Yeah. So I've been Angelos.
I've been Mo.
And see you again on the next exciting Your Success podcast.
You have been listening to Your Success Podcast. Click subscribe for more incredible content. More details can be found at www.yoursuccesspodcast.com.
Thank you for listening to Your Success Podcast. We'd love to know your thoughts at home about Mark Homer's interview. Please write to us at hello@yoursuccesspodcast or get in contact on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pigeon, Carrier, whatever it is. We'd love to know your thoughts.
Yeah, and don't forget that Your Success book is still out on Amazon, so
it hasn't sold out?
It hasn't sold out.
Wow.
Nearly.
Yeah.
But, so go and grab your copy of Your Success on Amazon and let us know what you think.
So thank you again for listening. I've been Angelos.
And I've been Mo.
And see you again on the next exciting episode.